What's up guys, my name is Ace, and recently I've been getting a lot of questions. A lot of people are asking me which of the new consoles should I get, because a lot of people now are kind of panicking. They want to play the full game of Black Ops 3, and there isn't going to be a campaign for previous gen, so if they want to play the full version, they have to get the new console. I did a whole video about that. If you want to see that, I will link that below if I remember. So today, I'm not necessarily going to tell you you need to buy the Xbox One or you need to buy the PS4. I'm going to be just talking about the things that I feel you should consider when looking at both of the consoles. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so I wanted to start this off by saying I don't really have any emotional attachment to either one of these consoles. I don't consider myself to be an Xbox fanboy or a PlayStation fanboy. I grew up playing PlayStation from PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and then during PlayStation 3's life cycle, I switched over to the Xbox 360 because that's where the DLC was for Call of Duty, and I started doing YouTube. So I switched to Xbox 360, then from there I went to the Xbox One, and now I have the Xbox One and the PS4, and I like both of the consoles. There's definitely pros and cons with each of them. So for you, if you're looking at getting one of these new consoles and you don't know which one you want, I would say the number one thing to consider, since they're both good consoles, I have nothing against either of them, they each have their pros and cons like I said, but the number one thing that I think you should consider is where are your friends playing? Do they have PS4s? Do they have Xbox Ones? I'm talking about the friends that you actually play with online too. I know probably most of you have friends in real life that don't really play video games that much, or you don't really play with them that much, and that's totally fine. But you should ask yourself, where are your gaming friends playing? Are they playing on the PS4 or the Xbox One? And this might not be really an easy answer. Maybe you don't really have any gaming friends. Maybe you're just a solo gamer. Or maybe you have friends on both consoles. So we might have to dig a little bit deeper than this. Now, one thing I'd like to say is I wouldn't really focus too much on all of the little hardware specs and all of that kind of stuff. I think that is just a little bit ridiculous. Sure, one of them maybe has a superior GPU or superior RAM or something along those lines. I honestly don't think that matters. That shouldn't be the deciding factor for you, in my opinion. I mean, everybody's looking for something different with a console, and maybe you're just the type of person that wants to be really picky with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is something that I think people get way too serious over. Honestly, you're not going to notice that much of a difference between the two if you're looking at how the PS4 can handle Call of Duty in native 1080p, whereas the Xbox One is an upscaled 1080p, I believe, or something along those lines. Honestly, you're not going to notice that much of a difference. It's not going to be something that completely ruins your enjoyment of the game or completely makes your enjoyment of the game. I think people focus on that way too much. One thing that I think people should focus on a little bit at least is the controller. To me, the Xbox One controller is quite a bit more comfortable than the PlayStation controller. I love the Xbox controller. I don't really mind the PlayStation controller, like I can get used to it, it's okay, but it's just not as comfortable as the Xbox controller. So I'm actually going to be playing the PS4 a fair amount for Black Ops 3 because that's where the DLC is going first. And I'm probably going to get one of those things that allows you to play with your Xbox One controller on the PlayStation 4, simply because I prefer the Xbox One controller in my hand. Another thing to consider when looking at both of these consoles is exclusivity. So there's certain games that only PlayStation gets, and there's certain games that only Xbox will get. So like Halo. Halo's going to be Xbox exclusive, as far as I'm aware anyways, unless something's changed and I just really haven't been paying attention. But on the other end, there's the Uncharted series. That's PlayStation exclusive. So you got to think about those a little bit. To me, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm a Call of Duty player, so I don't really care too much about all those other games. For me, it's not a big deal, but for you, it might be. Maybe you're a huge Uncharted fan or a huge Halo fan. That's something you definitely have to consider when looking at these new consoles. Also, DLC exclusivity, just like with Call of Duty. That's the reason I went to the Xbox One, is because Call of Duty still had their DLC exclusivity for the 30 days with the Xbox at the time. So that was 100% the reason I went with Xbox One. If it had switched to PlayStation before I got my Xbox One, I would have bought the PS4 first and then the Xbox One later, but it was the other way around. Now, for the average person, this probably isn't going to be enough to sway you. Maybe it is, I don't know. But for the really hardcore Call of Duty player or a YouTuber that makes Call of Duty videos, especially tip videos where they want to get the best or get the tips out first on the new maps and everything, then that might be something that's very important to you. So you just have to think about this as exclusivity. Does it matter to you? And if it does, then you may be swaying one way or the other based on the exclusivity. Another thing is the multimedia features, and honestly, I don't know much about these multimedia features, so I'm talking about like all the apps and like watching Netflix or Twitch and all that kind of stuff. For me, I use my consoles for gaming, and that is it. I don't use them for anything else. So I'm not really the best resource for this, but do some research on that. If you're planning on using this as a multimedia console rather than just a gaming console, then look into it. See which one handles various apps better, or which one has more apps that you're interested in using, because both of them will be a little bit different for sure. Now finally, I just want to share a couple pros and cons that I've found while using both of these consoles. For the Xbox, the number one pro for me is the controller. I love the Xbox One controller, like I said earlier. That is the biggest reason that I like playing my Xbox over my PS4. As for the cons though, this is something that might be minor to some people, but for someone like me that is constantly sending invites out to people while I stream and stuff, I'm constantly having to send invites to non-friends especially. The menu system is very slow and very clunky. It's very unresponsive as well. So basically when you hit a button when you're in the menus, sometimes you have to wait like a half a second, a second, maybe even up to like 2 seconds. I don't even know how long it takes sometimes. And it might seem like really, really minor and ridiculous and like the biggest first world problem in the world, but to me, it actually makes a big difference. When you hit a button on a new generation of consoles, in my opinion, it should react immediately. You shouldn't have to hit a button, wait 2 seconds to see if it actually registered that button click before you can hit the next button and wait for that one to register as well. Also, when you bring up somebody's profile to send them an invite, it should be just like a simple one button click, send invite. Instead, it's like click, it loads their profile, you have to wait 3 to 5 seconds, something like that. Their profile loads, then you have to load up the next page to hit send invite. And it just takes forever. It's very, very frustrating, especially on a newer generation console. When you're looking back at like the Xbox 360, you could run through those menus and navigate those menus almost instantly. And I don't know what they screwed up with the Xbox One, but it is just so clunky. Now this is something that is likely going to be resolved with the Windows 10 and DirectX 12 update, but I'm just reviewing it as it is right now, and as it is right now, I really hate the menu system with the Xbox One. As for the PS4, the menu system is great. It's very responsive. When you hit a button, it actually happens like right now. It doesn't take a couple seconds for it to load. The games overall seem to load a little bit faster than the Xbox One. You do get a slight graphical improvement with a lot of games compared to the Xbox One. Like I said earlier though, it's not really that big of a deal to me. I don't really care if I'm playing in an upscaled 900 or a 1080p, a native 1080p. It doesn't really matter to me that much, but it is a small pro because it is a fact. It's running at a slightly higher resolution. As for the cons, I'm not a huge fan of the controller, but I can get used to it. It's not something that like hurts my hand or anything. It just doesn't feel as natural as the Xbox controller. And I also, maybe it's just me not getting used to it, I also don't like the party system as much for the PlayStation. It might just be something I have to play around with a little bit more and get more comfortable with, but at this point, I'm not a huge fan of it. Now one thing, I'm going to get really specific to the Black Ops 3 beta here, since most of you guys are Call of Duty players here. I definitely preferred how Black Ops 3 ran on the PS4. It was a whole lot smoother, I had a lot less frame drops. On the Xbox One version, I had like little stutters all the time. Like it was every single game I played in, doesn't matter who the host was or where the connection was, I was getting little stutters on the Xbox One, but on the PS4, it was quite rare. I did get the odd one, but you always do in Call of Duty. But it wasn't something that I was noticing every single game, and it was starting to really get on my nerves. With the Xbox One, it was actually getting on my nerves a lot because I kept losing frames and skipping and stuttering, and it was just really frustrating on the Xbox One. So take that with a grain of salt though, that was the beta, things will likely change. If they don't though, then I'm PS4 all the way for Black Ops 3 because it was definitely a frustrating issue. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to share today. Hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of an idea of what you should be looking at when you're looking at getting these two different consoles. And hopefully, after going through this list, you'll know exactly what you want and you won't be unsure about whether or not you're getting the right console for you. So I'd like to hear from the people that already have the new generation of consoles. Which one of the consoles did you choose and why did you choose it? Like, go through your reasonings, not just I got an Xbox One because PS4 sucks, or I got a PS4 because Xbox One sucks. I know there's bound to be a little bit of a console war down there. Try to keep things clean and constructive and respectful, but I know it is kind of bound to happen with a video like this. If you enjoy the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.